The adab of the Holy Prophet of Islam are fascinating for you and I. If you look at, for example, books such as Wasa'il al-Shi'a, if you look at Bihar, if you look at Makarim al-Akhlaq, you'll see a number of important recommendations practiced by the Prophet of Islam and indeed important for you and I to apply. Why? Because we spend a third of our lives sleeping. And for some people, it's even more than that. No doubt. Similarly, there are those who suffer with sleep, for example, problems. Those who cannot go to sleep. Those who, for example, wake up regularly. Those who will have this impact their lives. And sometimes, without a shadow of a doubt, it's important to go and seek medical help. It's important to seek advice and to get all the necessary support. But have we tried to implement some of the tips from the Ahl al-Bayt into our lives? Because without a shadow of a doubt, these are done for a purpose, for you and I to be able to indeed absorb them. Question, what did he do and what did he recommend regarding sleep for you and I? Number one, he would say to Abu Dharr al-Ghafari radwanullahi ta'ala alayh, make sure everything you do in your life, including sleep, is done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning what? How many of us have been asked by people, what are you doing? I'm going to go to sleep. Why? I'm tired. Usual answer, yes, no problem. The Holy Prophet of Islam says that could be your main motive, but keep in mind always that this naum that you and I are in need of, and it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our bodies to recharge and get the energy, should be solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I am also undertaking the sleep qurbatan ilallahi ta'ala. Secondly, the Prophet of Islam would not go to sleep without being in the state of purity and wudu. And there are many of these recommendations given to us by the other illustrious individual that we're remembering tonight, the holy sixth Imam, Ja'far ibn Mohammed al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. The Imam would say that the Prophet of Islam would go into sleep always in wudu. In which way? He would say any person in the state of sleep who has gone into it by being in wudu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns their bed into a masjid in which Allah is worshipped throughout the night when they're asleep. Some young man once asked me, there is a problem. I said, why? He said, you do these 1 minute clips, you have already contradicted yourself. I said, how? He said, the moment we sleep, we lose wudu. How can this be ibadah? Good question. The best questions are usually from children. Yes? Because they're thinking outside the box. Here, the idea is not that I am actually in wudu when I go to sleep. I have gone into a state of ibadah whilst in the state of purity and wudu. And whilst I am in that state of purity, I go to sleep. And therefore, as a result, I am given the reward of an individual who is performing ibadah in a masjid. The Holy Prophet of Islam comes forward in a beautiful hadith that says, "At-tahiru naim kal-sa'imu al-qa'im." The person who goes to sleep in the state of tahara is given the reward of a person who's fasting and standing in salah. The duration is all the same. And this is why it's so important that we make a habit. We teach ourselves and our children that we do not go to sleep except in the state of wudu. The sixth holy Imam says, never go to sleep in the state of janaba. Do not go in the state of impurity and fall asleep. Even if you cannot do ghusl, our ulama say do wudu. It does not make you tahir completely for you to perform the wajibat, but at least it allows you to have that sleep that may be what? Restful, tranquil, calm sleep. Similarly, there are some amazing azkar that the Prophet of Islam used to recite before going to sleep and after waking up. Here are some gifts from the Prophet on this beautiful occasion of the anniversary of his wilada. He would go to sleep before saying the following: Allahumma bismika ahya wa bismika amut. Ya Allah, with your name I am given life and with your name I die. Why? The Prophet of Islam is reminding you and I, every night when we go to our beds, it's a minor death. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says that sometimes the soul is taken away when an individual is in that restful sleep. The Holy Prophet of Islam would say that before I go to sleep, I say, Ya Allah, I remember you when I am awake, and I remember you in case I'm about to die. Then when he wakes up, what does he say? Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyani ba'dama amatani wa ilayhi an-nushur. He says, praise be to Allah that's giving me life after He made me go through death. And to Him is the resurrection. Similarly, he was seen and heard reciting the Shahadatain, reciting Ayatul Kursi, and often reciting Surah Al-Tawheed, Surah Al-Ikhlas. Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He says, the Prophet once invited me and said to me, Ya Ali, alayka bil istighfar. Make sure you do istighfar before you go to sleep. وَقُلْ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ وَلَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ. He says, say this before you go to sleep. وَأَكْثِرْ مِنْ قَوْلِ قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ. Recite قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ a lot. وَعَلَيْكَ بِآيَةِ الْكُرْسِي. And he says, recite Ayatul Kursi. Why? فَإِنَّ كُلَّ حَرْفٍ مِنْهَا أَلْفُ بَرَكَةٍ. From every letter of Ayatul Kursi, you will get 1,000 barakah وَأَلْفُ رَحْمَةٍ. 1,000 rahmah. Similarly, the Sixth Holy Imam recommends the recitation of the last ayah of chapter 18, Surah Al-Kahf, in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to appoint malaika to wake you up to the time of your choosing. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. Recite this from your phone or memorize it. Also is good practice. Question, how did he sleep? What was the method of the sleep of the Prophet of Islam? We are Muslims. We claim to follow the Prophet. We claim to follow Ahl al-Bayt. If any people around the world were to practice the Sunnah, it must be you and I. We and I must be the pioneers of what? Of practicing what the Prophet of Islam did. So, it is mentioned in numerous riwayat that he slept on his right side. And he would place his hand under his cheeks when he would sleep. Similarly, the Quran speaks about Ashabul Kahf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when they slept, they started off by sleeping on their right. تَقَلُّبَهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ. The riwayat says it's okay later in life to turn towards the left, but there are stern warnings against sleeping on the stomach. The Prophet of Islam says this is a type of sleep that Allah and His Messenger dislike. Amir al-Mu'mineen saw that La'in ibn Muljam and said this is the sleep of shaitan. And interestingly, science today has shown sleeping on the right side helps with many heart conditions and to keep the heart healthy. Similarly, it has anti-arrhythmic activity, meaning it regulates the pulses and the heartbeats. And we have been shown that babies who are put to sleep on their stomachs are 7 times more likely to die of the sudden death syndrome. This that has unfortunately affected some people. And therefore, this is something to keep in mind. What else? We are told that facing the Qibla is recommended. And this, of course, is a bit of a challenge. Because there are people today whose bedrooms are not necessarily designed when it comes to the Qibla. However, if it's possible, then it's great. How? You ask me, how do I face the Qibla? The first thing is when the face, for example, is on the right, if it is facing the Qibla, that's great. Or the feet, if the feet, when you are lying on your back and the feet is there, if that's the direction of the Qibla to the extent that when you sit up, you're facing the Qibla, that's also recommended. We are told the Prophet of Islam sometimes would see in riwayat things in his sleep that could disturb him, like nightmares. What did he do? He said the following. Please try this, write this, later on record it, and maybe practice it. Yes, he would say, Huwa Allahu alladhi la sharika lah. The moment he wakes up, he would say, it is Allah that has no partners. How many hours did the Prophet of Islam sleep? This is a sensitive area, no doubt. Because today, science tells you of what different age groups require in terms of sleep. Do you agree? There are those who say that babies require more and children require a bit less, but much more than adults, and so on and so forth. There are tables presented. However, the Prophet of Islam used to what? Used to go to sleep generally after Salatul Isha. And he would say there should be no discussions after Salatul Isha. And he would wake up several times during the night to perform Salatul Layl. Some riwayat would say he would wake up, recite Ruk'atayn, then go back to sleep. Then wake up, Ruk'atayn, go back to sleep. Some riwayat say no, he would wake up way before Salatul Fajr to perform his Salatul Layl and would not sleep after Fajr. And would warn against sleeping at least between Fajr and sunrise. He would say that this is one of the best times of the day where the malaika of the night and the malaika of the day are there. And what? It's the greatest time for the acceptance of dua. It's a beautiful time for the giving of rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the gaining of ilm and knowledge. This is what the Holy Prophet of Islam has recommended. At the same time, there is another interesting tip from the Prophet of Islam, and that's what? Once he came and he said to his wife Aisha, please wash these 2 pieces of cloth for me. And his wife said to him, but I washed it yesterday. You argue with the Prophet. Anyway, so the Prophet of Islam says, don't you know that any clothes that have any dirt in it will stop doing glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he would say that sleep in clean clothes, not in any clothes that have dirt, because anything that has dirt will be the impediment towards dhikr. At the same time, when it comes to excessive sleep at night, the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِيَّاكَ وَكَثْرَةُ النَّوْمِ بِاللَّيْلِ. Be wary of not sleeping too much at night. فَإِنَّ كَثْرَةَ النَّوْمِ تَدَعُ الرَّجُلُ فَقِيرًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. If you sleep too much, you will be poor on the day of Qiyamah in Mustadrak al-Wasail. Similarly, a sunnah of the Prophet of Islam was to have these siestas, with to have what is known as qaylula. Now, somebody once came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah, I suffer with a lot of forgetfulness. I don't have a good memory. The Prophet said, did you used to do qaylula? He said, yes. Did you stop? He said, yes. He said, go back to it. After a while, he came back to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, it's solved. My memory is back now. But the Prophet and the Ahl al-Bayt do not say to us we should sleep 3 or 4 hours during the day. It is what? 10 to 40 minutes, according to many of our ulama. A very short nap, like a power nap, that is what? Following in the footsteps of the great messenger of God, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.